Welcome in, everybody, to another live edition of 410 Sports Talk. I am James Haskell, along with my co-host Glenn Martin, and we are excited. Look, Glenn, first divisional game of the season, week 5. The preseason is officially over, right?
The AFC East is officially over.
That's right. We know who we are now.
Jeez.
We know what we can and can't do. We've got a lot of roster moves going on with the Ravens, a lot of things to talk about. But really what we're here to do is help you prep for the upcoming game against the Cincinnati Bengals, which will be primetime Sunday night at the bank. We will be there, and we're excited about it. But as a part of that preparation, we're going to bring in a new friend and guest of the show, Mike Pedralia. I hope I said that correctly. I think I did. Mike does a ton of stuff, and I have to say, the first thing I'm going to mention is he has the coolest podcast name that he's a host of, Jungle Roar Pod, which I think is awesome. He's also a beat writer for the Cincinnati Bengals and a columnist for CLNS Media. So he's here to give us the insight into the Bengals. Mike, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, guys. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
I'm looking forward to the bank on Sunday night. I must preface this by saying, and I get all kinds of crap from my colleagues in my hometown of Cincinnati for saying this, but I covered the Patriots for 27 years. So I made many trips on a Sunday night or a Monday night to Baltimore. And you know the game I remember the most?
What's that?
It's the game that I'm sure most Ravens fans remember from a Sunday night. It's the Justin Tucker kick over the right upright to win the game 31-30 against the Patriots. That's the singular game I remember from M&T Bank Stadium.
Yeah, certainly a lot of memorable games. I couldn't help but notice, I think I was looking through your Twitter, and I couldn't help but notice that you pointed out a pretty cool moment too when Derek Mason clearly got under the skin of Bill Belichick.
It is my favorite smack talk moment ever by a player to a coach. I mean, there's nothing that compares to Derek Mason getting under the skin of Bill Belichick. And Belichick's response was so Belichickian. That's what makes me laugh when I watch it. You know, not only does he tell him to STFU, and we'll talk after the game. Can you read a scoreboard? That's the perfect tagline to that whole exchange. Can you read a scoreboard?
Absolutely. If anyone wants to relive
Derek
that.
Mason having the perfect personality and response to that, just giggling and laughing the whole time. It was just such a great job by NFL Films to capture that.
And if anyone wants to relive that moment, you can follow Mike on Twitter at Trags, Trags, and he has it right there on his page, and it's quite hilarious. No doubt.
I tell you what, Derek Mason's still one of the most underrated, I believe, former Ravens. Yeah, beloved certainly, but an underrated guy. I would say here and nationally for sure. But he's a treasure, both in the media, with the hot mic, and on the football field.
No doubt.
Yeah, and not that he had the numbers that Ocho Cinco had, but he certainly has that same kind of personality, which Belichick would endear him to Belichick when they're not on the field together.
Absolutely. All right, so I want to get into this matchup coming up, but the place I want to start, like most teams, you know, in the offseason, the Bengals were trying to shore up some holes on their offensive line and limit the amount of times Joe Burrow is sacked, which was, you know, clearly an issue, certainly in the playoffs. But so they went out, they got Lyle Collins, who had the famous, they won't touch you on Twitter. And of course,
bodyguard.
Yes, the bodyguard.
Yes,
there we go. And Jonah Williams, the first-round pick that was battling a bunch of injuries, seems to be healthy. He's back. So the anticipation was that the line would be much better and that Joe Burrow would be hit a lot less. Doesn't seem to be the case so far this season. So what's going on with that revamped offensive line?
So Joe Burrow was under pressure 30 times in the first 2 weeks. He was sacked 13 times in the first 2 weeks. It's been a lot cleaner the last 2 weeks. And I think, guys, the reason is very simple. They didn't have time together during training camp as a unit, any game reps. They had a few, hard reps against the LA Rams in joint practices, those joint practices that ended with Lyle Collins and Aaron Donald getting into it, and another linebacker of the Rams getting into it. That was the extent of their real hard contact in training camp. And because of that, and because Joe Burrow was coming back from the appendectomy in late July, there wasn't a lot of rhythm. And both Burrow and everyone on the offensive line acknowledged that in the first 2 weeks, that we're still getting our feet under us. We're still getting our timing down. They promised that once we get our timing down, you're going to see a much different flow to the offense, and Burrow is going to have more time. And I think you've seen a little bit more of that. Certainly from the interior Bengals offensive line. Lael Collins has been granted the last 2 weeks off from practice before today, Thursday. Today was his first day of practice since September 16th, because they're managing his back issue that flared up in July very carefully. So I think it's taken them time to gel as a unit, and they do look better. And they still have to find a way to run the ball. The inability to run the ball with Joe Mixon is a concern for the Bengals. It's probably, as Brian Callahan told me today, it's probably the number one concern on their offense.
Yeah.
It's interesting because that's something we're struggling with. Join the club, right? And it's crazy to think that the Ravens are struggling with the run game with the offensive coordinator and the history we have at running the ball. But I want to stay on the offense and specifically talk about Joe. I'm going to ask you two questions here. One more of a micro level and kind of your thoughts on him this year. I want to get what you're thinking, what your thoughts are on how he's played thus far and how you see him coming into this game. But you mentioned before we started the show, well, not before we started the show, at the beginning of the show, that you covered the Patriots.
Right.
I got a bone to pick with the media because not national media. A lot of people seem to be crowning this guy as the next Tom Brady. Did a lot in the offseason, but you're uniquely positioned to talk about both.
Right.
So I would love to know a little bit about, your thoughts between comparing the two. So if you could talk about what your thoughts are on that, and then of course, right now, how you feel like Joe's playing this year coming into this game.
Similarities. There is no moment too big for either quarterback. And I think both quarterbacks have shown me the ability to rise to the occasion when the game is on the line. I saw that with Burrow last year in the playoff road wins at Tennessee and Kansas City back to back. It reminded me of Brady because he knew what his team needed. He could have been playing real terrible for the first 3/4 of the game. But when the game was on the line, he would call the right play, and then execute that play under great pressure in a hostile environment. I saw that from Tom Brady for 20 years. And I would say that's where the similarity begins with the two. Certainly the two have an enormous responsibility to their team off the field. The way they handle the media is a little bit different. There are some similarities. Both smile and laugh and have a media personality, so to speak. Joe Burrow is more relaxed than Tom Brady. When Tom Brady's done with the media, he's all business, very serious, doesn't like to be disturbed. Burrow doesn't like to be disturbed, but I think he's a little more chill and gets away from the game of football enough to relax. Uh, and then in terms of the way they play, Joe Burrow holds on to the ball way too long and is taking way too many hits early in his career. And if there's one thing that I think Joe Burrow knows he has to work on, it's his release time. Because when I was in New England, one of the first stats that we looked at on Monday morning after a Sunday game was what was his average release time. And almost like clockwork, no pun intended, it would be 2.5 seconds or less. He would get rid of the ball. Why is that? Because he was playing teams like the Baltimore Ravens with fierce pass rushes, and Brady wanted to go empty set. Well, if you're going to play a team like the Ravens and you're going to go empty, you better have the ball out with under 3 seconds. Burrow doesn't play like that. He likes to hold on to the ball as long as possible to give him his big-time targets, T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, time to get down the field and throw the ball down the field. And that's where I think Joe Burrow is going to have to make some adjustments, not only this season, but going forward if he's going to last as long as Tom Brady has.
Yeah, and that can be a challenge because I think a lot of that time, that extra time you build or you kind of create for your team, can create big plays down the field. So it's kind of like, what you take maybe a couple more sacks than a less mobile guy, but do you create bigger plays down the field with that added time?
Correct.
But yeah, I definitely agree. I think Joe Burrow's responsibility on some of these sacks, while the offensive line gets the blame, I think Joe Burrow does like to hang on to the ball like a lot of guys. But I did want to ask you to circle back on Joe Mixon for a moment, because
Yeah.
I think everyone agrees that when you look at the Bengals, certainly their offense, their weapons are, as good as you get in the entire league. And Joe Mixon is a big part of that. But when I see 82 carries and just 224 yards, averaging 2.7 per carry, it makes me really scratch my head and wonder, is this solely on the offensive line, or is there some issues going on with Mixon? Maybe is he losing some burst? So what's going on there?
So Joe Mixon spent 25 minutes talking with the media the other day in front of his locker. When you get him to talk, he loves to talk. He talks football. He's very open. He's not shy about, his own mistakes and the way he sees the game in front of him. But what he talked about was, we are so close to breaking through. We are missing a block here or a technique there that's keeping me from really bursting through. Or, a linebacker at the second level makes a last second shoestring tackle to trip him up. And it's been, the first 4 games have been filled with that. But Mixon's been through this before, namely in 2019, when he started off with an average of about 2.9 yards per carry through the first 8 games. And then he exploded in the second half with, Frank Pollock, their current offensive line coach. They got the zone blocking down. Zach Taylor started calling more runs that, really suited Joe Mixon's style. And he wound up the season with something like 4 100-yard rushing games in the last 6 games. And Mixon thinks the Bengals are capable of doing that much earlier this season, he hopes, and gaining some momentum so that Joe Burrow can have an effective play action passing game. The other thing I would tell you when you ask about Mixon, and one of the problems I think Mixon is having, is because of the lack of success and the lack of gelling in terms of chemistry with the offensive line, he's not trusting what he's seeing in front of him. And you ask any running back, if you're not trusting the line to make a block at a certain point and you hesitate even for half a second, the hole's gone. And that's what I think's been happening with Joe Mixon, and why not only has he not been rushing for big time yards or getting those explosive runs that you see other teams like Cleveland having almost every single week.
Yeah.
But you're losing yards behind the line of scrimmage. And those are the plays that are really killers for this Bengal team. One more thing I'll tell you is Mixon's best run last week against Miami was the 5-yard rugby scrum into the end zone with the whole offensive line pushing him in. That was great. But in that game, fourth quarter, Bengals down 15-14. They're at the 2-yard line, or actually right outside the 1-yard line, and Mixon gets stuffed for a 2-yard loss. That can't happen. I mean, there's no excuse for that. And those are the kind of, low red zone problems the Bengals have been having running the ball.
Let's get to Jimbo, if you wouldn't mind. Let's get to Marco G's comment. He has a question for Mike. He says, "Hey, Mike, what's Hurst's status? Groin injury?"
So he's questionable officially, but he's been out at practice. And this week, Zach Taylor said, it's something he's managing, but not a serious issue. He'll be ready to go against his former team. And Hayden Hurst talked about how excited he was. He talked yesterday, as a matter of fact, Wednesday, about how he cannot wait to get back on the field in that great environment in Baltimore.
Yeah.
So he'll be ready to play.
Is he an upgrade over CJ, in your opinion? Uzama?
Great question. Yes, he is. Short answer, yes, he is. I think he's much more of a downfield threat. And the one thing he's been doing well, and Zach Taylor and Brian Callahan, the OC, both have pointed to this, his yards after catch are incredible. And not only is he getting great yards after catch, he's dragging defenders in the process of doing that. It's not just, getting hit and running after that first contact. He actually is carrying defenders. And you know what kind of boost that gives to an offense when you have a player, obviously in Baltimore, all about Mark Andrews. You have when you have a burst player like that who's really tough and big, it really fires up the offense, fires up the crowd, and that's one of the things Hayden Hurst has been able to bring to the Bengal offense that CJ Uzama did not.
Yeah, no, it's been bittersweet watching Hayden because he's already got 21 targets this year. I think he's got 14 receptions, which is a great start to the year in comparison to some of the years he had here. So it's been a bit bittersweet to watch him prosper because God, now he's back in the division. He's on another team. Of course, he's a former Raven, so always a Raven to a certain extent. But like you said, I'm sure he's rearing to get back because he's an emotional player.
One other thing I would tell you guys, at the beginning of actually in March, when he was signed as a free agent, he had the most monstrous chip on his shoulder. He kept reminding everybody, I was a first round pick for a reason. And I think he came into this season signing a 1-year prove it deal with the Bengals to show everybody that, 2 seasons in Baltimore, 2 seasons in Atlanta. A lot of people on the outside viewed his career so far as a disappointment. And he came into this year not only with a chance to play for a Super Bowl ring with the Bengals, but for a chance to really show people that, he still has so much left in the tank and so much left to prove as a weapon tight end in the NFL.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. I think that you talked about this, but not to belabor the point with Hayden too much, but there's not too many guys that can say they played professional sports in 2 sports. He's plenty athletic. And I think sometimes even that gets overlooked a bit, right? You talked about, his yak and things like that, but the guy is an absolute athlete, which is
But how bad of luck has he had, though, Jimbo? He gets drafted to the same team that drafts Mark Andrews, and then he goes to Atlanta and they draft Kyle Pitts. It's like, my goodness, this guy can't catch a break.
I know.
I would argue, though, Kyle Pitts is more of a receiver than he is a true tight end, but, we're splitting hairs there.
For sure. Well, and now it seems like they're scared of throwing the ball these days. I don't know what's going on. He's killing me on fantasy, Mike. He's killing me.
I wish I could help you.
Well, I want to ask you about not the tight ends. I want to ask you about the guys on the outside because really I think they are the headliners for the Cincinnati Bengals outside of Joe Burrow. So, talk about Jamar Chase, talk about Higgins. How have you seen those guys grow this year in comparison to last year, right? Because I think the core is young and they're kind of maturing together. What differences have you seen coming into this season, in comparison to last year, whether those be positive or negative?
So it's interesting you asked that question because today Brian Callahan was asked just that about T. Higgins. And he said, the one thing I will tell you about T. Higgins is he's worked on his one-on-one skills downfield. And why that's important is because you're seeing more and more teams double Jamar. And when you have those situations, you have a team like Miami last week with Xavier Howard saying, okay, we're going to put Howard press coverage right up on T. We're not going to let him get a free release because if you give a big receiver like T. Higgins a free release, you're asking for trouble. And so they put Xavier Howard up on him. And what does he do? He makes a move inside, move outside, gets his arm free, and then leaves Howard, in the dust by about 2 steps. Burrow sees it, throws the bomb down, 55-yard touchdown, for the Bengals' second touchdown of the night in that game. And that was a huge moment because Jamar was getting all the coverage from the Dolphins. He was getting cloud bracketed over the top, all of that. And, the thing Callahan said was, those are the moments that show me that he's really grown as a receiver. We all know he has exceptional pass catching ability, but he has worked to really battle for the ball in one-on-one situations. And, he's probably going to see a little bit more of that unless the Ravens throw something at the Bengals like they did at Jamar last year, the triple-double coverage that Wink Martindale came up with to try and control Jamar Chase. Maybe they do that, or they split him up somehow, even though Wink's gone. Split them up somehow between Jamar and T. As for Jamar Chase, I'm rambling here, but Jamar Chase has shown the ability to be a little bit more patient, knowing that he's not going to get the ball early in games. And that's a hard thing for a second-year receiver in the NFL to do. But Jamar Chase is such a bright, intelligent, an exceptional athlete, that he's trained himself. I'm going to wait for my shot later in games, and then I have the trust that Joe Burrow is going to get me the ball. To me, the biggest growth in Jamar's game in his second season has been his patience, the mental aspect of the game.
Yeah, I know it's got to be challenging because I pull up his numbers and I go, he goes from 18 a catch to 11, from last year to this year. That's got to be, for, like you said, a young guy's mentality. It's got to be,
Well, and understand, part of that is Burrow's not getting the time to throw the ball deep. That's part of it.
Yeah.
The other part of it is he's not getting the yak that like a Hayden Hurst gets because there are so many defenders around Jamar. They are been told what happened in Baltimore, and other teams saw that play. Obviously, it's an iconic play from Jamar's rookie year. The play in Baltimore cannot happen. Play against the Kansas City Chiefs in Cincinnati at the end of the year, like when he boat raced 3 Chief defenders, including Tyrann Mathieu, to the end zone. That can't happen. Yeah. So they are making sure that there's a defender behind Jamar and in front of Jamar to make sure that he doesn't get behind the defense. So that's why I would say his yards per catch average is down.
No doubt. Getting that attention. I got to ask about the defense.
Yep.
We know they're pass rushers, and we're going to get into it. Hubbard and Hendrickson, they're extremely talented. Would definitely like to see one of those or both of those guys in Baltimore. Would make our defense a ton better. And their safeties, with Bell and Bates, get a ton of attention, and deservedly so. We were big Logan Wilson fans when the draft process was going through. Same with B.J. Hill. Was
smart
last year. We like those guys. But I want to know about the weaknesses of this defense, because I think the Ravens fans know the strengths, because that pass rush with the tackles that the Ravens were dealing with last year, the pass rush was running right through them like wet paper. So where is it on this defense do you feel is a weakness that the Ravens might be able to exploit and move the ball?
Well, you have to start in the middle of the defensive line in terms of depth. And B.J. Hill's very good, but with DJ Reader down and Larry Ogunjobi now in Pittsburgh, those are 2 key players for the Bengals defense against the Ravens in both games in Baltimore and Cincinnati last year. They're gone. Obviously DJ Reader is out for at least probably another 8 to 9 weeks with his left knee injury. So I would, if I were the Ravens, I'd run at the middle of that Bengals defensive line and test whether or not Josh Tupou, the guy that had the sack on Tua Tagovailoa, I would test him in the run game, and certainly test B.J. Hill. And there's, a couple of other defensive linemen that the Bengals might have to throw in there in terms of depth. See if the Bengals can stop the run, because they have given up some runs early in games to the Cowboys and to the Steelers. But they've been able to, bring Logan Wilson closer to the line of scrimmage. And, obviously the big play last week when Wilson stopped the Miami running back on 3rd down for a 2-yard loss. That was a huge play in that game. That's what the Bengals are going to have to do. There's a little bit of robbing Peter to pay Paul aspect of this defense when it comes to stopping the run. And probably, to me, that's the number one weakness. Other than that, maybe testing Eli Apple, because Eli Apple on the outside can run hot and cold. His technique has improved. People forget he's been in the NFL for 6 years now, former first-round pick of the Giants. I'd test Eli Apple. Cheeto Awuzie is just rock solid. He's maybe not, the level of a Marlon Humphrey, perhaps, but he is certainly up there among the better cornerbacks in the National Football League.
Well, I've been appreciating the insight here, Mike. There's a couple other questions that I want to ask before we let you go, though. You talked a little bit about some injuries. Are there any other injuries on the, that the Bengals are working through right now that would be noteworthy?
Well, they had full participation in practice today. Evan McPherson, that's a big storyline in the game. Justin Tucker and Evan McPherson,
right?
1 and 2.
Evan McPherson was dealing with a sore groin on Wednesday, but he was back to full participation on Thursday. So That I don't think is a big deal. Jermaine Pratt had a knee problem. He's a starting linebacker for the Bengals, and he was back to full participation on Thursday. So they're relatively healthy in terms of coming into this game. I don't think there's going to be any issues. And we already talked about Hayden Hurst and his groin issue.
Right.
He should be able to play. So to answer your question, the Bengals are pretty healthy.
Now,
Yeah,
Dax Hill, why is he not getting any clock? We like Dax Hill because he played for Michigan, and we figured he'll know the offense. The Ravens decided to go Kyle Hamilton, but why is Dax Hill not getting any clock?
Simply because there hasn't been opportunity for him on the field. The Bengals secondary is that deep. I mean, you're talking about Von Bell, Jesse Bates. You're talking about Mike Hilton as the nickel, and Apple and Awuzie as your corners. That's 5 spots. And if they go dime, they have the option of going Trey Flowers like they did last year against Mark Andrews, or putting Dax Hill in. Dax Hill could play more snaps in this game for one reason. You know what that reason could be?
Lamar?
Yep.
Spy
Lamar
yeah.
in certain parts of the field.
Yeah.
They wouldn't expect, the way Lou Anarumo sort of hinted at this week when he spoke on Wednesday was Bengals have a way of using spies in parts of the field, but not one guy responsible all over the field. Many defensive coordinators look at it this way. If a guy comes your way, you got him. If you get another guy comes, maybe it's maybe it's Logan Wilson, who is incredible. You guys know this, how fast Logan Wilson is as a reacting linebacker. He's a 3-down Mike, which Lou Anarumo said is incredibly rare in the NFL. Very, very rare to have a Mike linebacker that you trust putting on the field for all 3 downs. And Wilson is that guy. So Wilson could spy Lamar. Dax Hill can spy Lamar. Dax Hill's a very good tackler in space. You need that if you're going to do that with Lamar Jackson.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm still salivating at our chances in either of those scenarios. I have to be completely honest with you. I feel good about number 8 getting it done. But certainly, like you said, I mean, you're throwing about the best you can considering the circumstances, right? It's just difficult to do.
Here's a question I have for you guys.
Yeah.
If you're the Bengals, do you not blitz that much and let Lamar beat you from the pocket?
Well, I mean, he's played so well against the blitz. Now, the only difference this week is that, Rashad Bateman isn't going to be there. And so, if your number one wide receiver isn't going to be there, I think that it increases the likelihood of mistakes with a blitz. So if you're asking me what I would do, I think the Bateman situation changes the context, and I say you go after him and until he proves you're wrong. But my only concern would be he was playing so well. He was red hot against the blitz early on. So I would just make sure I have a backup plan if I get punched in the mouth, like Mike Tyson says, right?
The Bengals have said on numerous occasions, and maybe they want him to do this, but if you get Lamar out of the pocket, what makes him so dangerous is he can not only beat you to the sideline and then go make it down the sideline, he can also cut back into the B gaps, and there will be nobody there because the backside of a B gap contain is usually not there, and the Bengals have to be very, very cautious of that.
Yeah,
no doubt. Because a lot of people think you can just contain from the edges. Well, some of the biggest runs of Lamar's career, if not the biggest, have been right up the middle. So, yeah, you definitely have to rush. But I will say, if any team is equipped, to rush without having to blitz, it's a team like the Bengals that, in my opinion, have 2 great edge rushers. And, we like Morgan Moses, but he's certainly had some struggles at right tackle, and I'm worried about that. And then if this is Ronnie Stanley's first game back, you're talking the first game in quite some time. So I got to imagine – you're going to have to help both your tackles at different points in the game. And so while we're hoping it's Ronnie, if it is Ronnie, he hasn't played since week 1 of last season. And when he did play, it was not very good. So
it really feels like an eternity ago. But Mike, we got to ask you this before we let you go. What do you consider 2 things? What do you consider the keys to the game if the Bengals want to leave the bank with a victory? And then eventually, I don't know if you weekly put out a prediction. I don't know if you have yet, if you're holding out until you have or not. But if you're holding out, that's no worries, but at least let us know which way you're leaning. We'd like to know those 2 things.
All right. first of all, I think the key to the victory for the Bengals would be getting the play action pass going, because I think you're going to have to run the ball early. And then there's no doubt that Joe Burrow is going to want the ball in his hands late in the game. He's going to want to make some big plays down the field, like he did against the Dolphins, who also have have a good run defense. But I think the Bengals want to eventually test the Ravens secondary and test it successfully. Whether or not they have a lead at the start of the game or not, you don't want to fall behind 21-3 or something like that. But as long as the Bengals are close, like they were in the first half last year at M&T Bank Stadium, actually, I believe they had the lead 13-10. They want to have a controlled situation in the game. As for the Ravens, the ball has to be in Lamar's hand, and he has to make, I'd say, 3 to 4 significant big plays against the Bengals defense, punch him in the mouth a little bit, and then soften him up for the run game. And that would be the key to victory for the Ravens. Based on the way the Ravens secondary is playing, my prediction is Bengals 34, Ravens 23.
Wow. Not only a win, a decisive win.
The Raven, this, they're 32nd in pass defense so far this year. And given what the Bengals are bringing to town, I think the Bengals could be licking their chops here for that.
Ooh, well, it's going to be a lot of fun. I certainly know that the Ravens secondary is excited to play them, at least from a secondary standpoint, at full strength. I know that a lot of players certainly, and I don't think he was purposely doing this, but I know a lot of them heard Joe talking about the numbers. He rung up on the Ravens in the offseason. And I know guys, say those things don't matter, but we're all human. Those things matter.
No question.
And so I'm looking forward to it as well. But Mike, we're so grateful for you coming on. Shout out to Mike, last minute guest, man. Way to come through clutch. Thank you so much. Glenn kind of mentioned it earlier, but why don't you let the folks know where they can find all the stuff that you're working on, where they can follow you on social media and things like that.
For all the people that hate me now for my prediction, I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm going to get so many F-bombs on Twitter. I'm just going to get so many people killing me. I apologize, but when people ask for my prediction, it's just a prediction.
There you go.
It's going to happen. But anyway, at Trags, TRAGS. Follow me on Instagram if you like, Trags1. And be sure to follow me on my YouTube Jungle Roar podcast page. It's the Jungle Roar podcast on YouTube. Do a quick search and I should pop up.
Nice. Thanks a lot, Mike. Appreciate it. And hopefully we'll talk when this next matchup comes along.
All right, guys. Thank you very much for having me.
Yep. Have a good night.
Take care.
Nice. That was awesome. Mike is a wealth of knowledge. And Asmodeus says, for your McRib needs, appreciate it. My man always keeping us fed. It's been a little while since we've seen Asmodeus. So welcome back to the stream.
He must had a hankering for McDonald's. It seems like every time he's feeling a little McDonald's fiend, he's like, he's probably got a bag of McDonald's on his lap watching the show at the same time.
That's it. Just eating in the car. Hey, we all remember those nights. How many meals have you eaten in the front seat of your car, Jimbo? Let me ask you that.
With the phone on the dash?
Yes, watching The Office.
Or some random Netflix thing that you'll never watch again in your life about animals in the safari. And you're eating a whole Little Caesars pizza. Maybe two. I mean, dude, I've been there.
How your day went. Yeah, exactly. So certainly appreciate it. My man, McCracken? Yeah, what is a McCracken? Is this a new creation? Oh my goodness. Don't tell me there's a McCracken. And it just sounds, if there is one, it sounds intense. Like it sounds the McCracken. That's gotta be.
I gotta tell you this though, because you got me thinking.
What?
Dude, I'm gonna go way back before the iPhone, okay?
All right.
Dude, this was 2000 and not before the iPhone, before I had an iPhone. This was like 2008, something like that. 2008, 2009. Freshman in college. It's the summer before I went on my mission. Actually, I'm working at a ambulance shop in the shop, just helping out the mechanics. Every lunch, I used to get 2 footlongs and sit and watch a movie on my stupid iPod, like video, because I thought it was cool that I had a 2x2 screen that had a movie on it.
Oh, yeah.
And I would sit, dude, I would get a hot sub and a cold sub, 24 inches of freaking Subway, dude.
Eat the whole thing. Both of them.
Easy, dude, and 2 cookies, bro. Like,
I don't know where you put it.
dude,
It's absolutely insane. Oh, I think I may have just if I messed something up, DK. There it is. This is a secret. I actually hate McDonald's. What? Blasphemy. Actually, you know what? I think it's been 5 or 6 years since I've had McDonald's. So yeah, it's been a while.
oh, God.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh
boy.
my good. I'm done, DK. I keep
Hands off,
overstepping.
Glenn. Hands off.
All right, my bad. Jared says the secondary is only bad because of our mediocre pass rush. They need to get in the backfield on Sunday. Yeah, sometimes when we have guests on, I have to bite my tongue a bit because the natural urge is to refute or argue some of the stuff they're saying. But you can't argue the numbers. And right now, the secondary is listed as the 32nd ranked passing defense. And so while I agree with Jared here, I think it's definitely more of a reflection, or is just as much a reflection on the lack of pass rush. But it's also a reflection on these young guys. I don't think it's a reflection on Marcus Williams. Not so much on Chuck Clark, certainly not on Marlon and Marcus outside of the one play in his first action back against Tyreek. It's a reflection on these young guys. So, but ultimately that falls at, the responsibility of the coaching staff, who is expected to get these young guys, even though they're young, up and ready to play and not be dead last in the league. I mean, look, they're not just bad, right? They're the worst defense in the league when it comes to defending the pass. So while my urge was to defend our guys, it's hard to when the numbers are what they are.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. It's so, like you said, statistics are statistics, and they're undeniable facts, right? But you can also parse those things out, and like you said, it's really hard to argue with Jared in that, like, the pass rush and the secondary are dependent upon one another for gain, right?
Yeah.
And so it's just Ozzie Newsome used to talk about this all the time. If you want to have a good secondary, get good guys up front.
Yeah, no doubt.
Right? He used to talk about the best cure for a struggling secondary is a good pass rush all the time.
I think the Bengals secondary is a perfect example of that. I don't think their safeties are good, but I don't think their corners are that good at all. I don't think Eli Apple's very good, and Chidobe's okay, but I don't think he's a great player. But they're made to look a lot better when their pass rush is what it is, and they got 2 really good ones in
Yeah,
Cincy.
I think that went in Eric DeCosta's ear and out the other.
Yeah, I guess so.
I mean, so. It's just, but Raven Ron says, will Ravens finally double team Chase, egos aside? I think we'll definitely see some. He talked about some bracketing to Chase, some, safety over the top, stuff like that. I mean, yeah, I think that will be without a doubt. But I think if I'm not mistaken, he even talked about, we did that in the last game.
Yeah, well, last game, I don't even like to
we
look
weren't
at
in full strength. It's a different team. You know what I mean? It's not even fair to, I could even argue that the 5-game home losing streak, like, okay, it's really 2 because the other one wasn't even with Lamar Jackson and half the other team. Like, I don't know. You know what I mean? So I know people are kind of upset about that, but at the end of the day, 2 different teams here. But Glenn, we got to kind of back up for a sec because this is a little different. I know that we we had the guest on first, so I want to talk about a few things. We got to get through like injury / roster updates because the Ravens are making moves. Yes. So I want to make sure you guys are ready. And then we'll kind of talk about these matchups offensively and defensively from each side.
Okay.
And I'm ready to keep my streak alive as far as breakout players. I feel like I'm doing pretty good lately.
Yeah, you are. I'm not doing good in any aspect. Actually, I will say my keys to the game have been pretty good and pretty dead on. And whether if we achieve them, then we won. And when we didn't achieve them, we tend to lose. So, maybe that's I can hang my hat on. But Asmodeus says, I literally only ever said McChicken since you can get them for $2. All right. Yeah, you can you still get them for $2, by the way?
I don't know. Inflation's a mother, dude.
Yeah, I don't even know if they're currently still that inexpensive, but if they
you don't
are,
think inflation's real, check out Tesla's current base price for their car in comparison to what the 3 was when it originally came out. I think it's almost doubled.
Well, it was in the 30s.
Yeah, it's not in the 30s anymore. I think it's 59.
Jeez Louise.
So yeah.
Makes me sick.
Good luck. Yeah. James and Glenn, stoked to be attending my first Ravens home game on Sunday night. Nice. I'm from New York, so I only get to see the Ravens when they come to MetLife. Let's get this W. Keep up the great work. Appreciate that. Fabian Barcenas.
Yeah, we're going to be at the game too, so we're extremely excited.
Yeah, DM us, and we'll come take a picture or something.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
if you want to, it's not like
I'm
we're
glad.
that cool.
Speak for yourself. Fabian, if this is your first game, way to pick a game because I expect the bank to be absolutely rocking. Last time we were at a Sunday night game, it was unbelievable atmosphere, the best atmosphere I've ever experienced in the many, many games I've gone to over my life as a Ravens fan. It was unmatched. And since it's a Sunday night game, there's going to be a cool halftime show. So we'll be able to see Nelly drop some country grammar on the bank. So excited to see that too. I mean, Nelly, when I was a kid, he was the man. So I'm hyped to see and sing along with his song. So it should be really fun. But let's get into some of the new additions here.
Yeah, let's do it.
Jimbo, because I think
Some
that's
exciting
where
names.
Yeah, I think that's where we should start. So the Ravens added 2 players in the recent days. They added a linebacker, AJ Klein, who's 31 years old. He's played in 134 career games, including 80 starts. They plucked him off of the Giants practice squad after he spent his last couple years with the Bills, including starting 4 games last season. He's a solid veteran. I mean, it's a guy who's done it all, seen it all. And I think what's exciting about bringing him in is it doesn't it's not going to make guys have to be overextended and force them to play a ton of snaps, and it allowed guys to be fresh. This is a guy who's been in the league since 2013 was his rookie year. He's got over 15 sacks in his career, so he's a guy that can get to the passer. He's got 4 interceptions in his career. He's also a hell of a special teams player, so I know that Chris Hewitt's excited to get him. But what were your thoughts when you saw AJ Klein was coming to Baltimore?
Yeah, I'm happy about it. I'm looking forward to him being plugged into the lineup and providing some help at that position. So, I mean, it wasn't one of those moments where I to move right on to the next one, I'm much more excited about Isabella than the potential of that signing than Klein at that linebacker position. So yeah, nice move, solid player. And hopefully he can help because we need all that we can get at this point. Right.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about old Andy.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Yeah, man. Obviously the Ravens have signed Andy and Isabella. If you guys don't know who he is, let's see. He was originally drafted, if I'm not mistaken.
Cardinals. Yeah. Spent his whole career at
the Cardinals. And he's had some ups and downs. He's definitely had some moments where he's flashed. Even in the preseason when we played them, I mean, he was doing some damage for sure. And so I like the kid. Look, I'm going to go out on a real limb here.
Uh-oh. Here we go.
Actually, I should probably wait.
Well, let me tell you at least my thoughts, and you can decide if you want to go on this limb. Oh, you're going to make him your offensive player of the week, aren't you?
No. I was actually going to ask, is he going to – I don't know what his status is. I saw that he signed the practice squad. Is he going to be in this game?
Yeah, that's the question because they will elevate members of the practice squad for the game, and then they'll quickly revert back to the practice squad afterwards. I don't know if they'll activate him. Here's what I'll say about Andy that's exciting. First of all, it's funny. He came out in 2019. He came out of UMass. He was a second-round draft pick by Arizona. Yep. And so I went back and looked at his draft profile just to try and get an understanding of what the expectations were and all when he was coming out. And the funny thing is, the guy is an absolute burner. He's relatively undersized in NFL standpoint, but he is an absolute burner, both quick and short, in the short area as well as long speed. And his player comp when he was drafted was Marquise Hollywood Brown, which I think is absolutely perfect for him to come to Baltimore. Mm-hmm. But the reason why I think there's a chance he could be active is because you mentioned it before the season, Jimbo. You expected Devin Duvernay's role to grow in the offense and lessen on special teams.
I was going to say, Glenn, see, telepathy, bro.
We're here. And so while I was happy to see at least to this point that his role in special teams hasn't diminished, and we just saw him explode offensively because I think he's the best return guy in football. But what Andy brings is he is also a very talented return guy. He's a punt returner and kick returner. He's also a hell of a special teams player who's made 39 games he's played at special teams. He makes tackles on special teams. So I think if they do elevate him, that could be because they expect Duvernay to step into a much larger role offensively, and they want to limit his exposure and touches on special teams. So yeah, if he's activated, that tells me that Duvernay's role is much more increased than we're used to seeing.
Yeah, so that's a big part of what I was going to say in that, yeah, it's exciting to know. The most exciting thing about this is that if he does end up taking the lion's share of the special teams duties on, one, it's kind of an indictment on James Prochet, but he's already had a lot of indictments on him at this point. Two, it also means that Duve's going to get more targets, which is exciting. I think he's far and above. I mean, I think he's our best wide receiver, but he's far and above the best wide receiver is in terms of yak. I know Rashad has had a good year this year so far from a yak perspective, but he's inconsistent. In order to be good at yak, you got to catch the football. Mm-hmm. I mean, you got to be pretty consistent there. You can't do anything. You can't, it's yards after drop. We're not measuring that, right? Like, you know what I mean? How many yards did you run after the ball flew through your hands in that last catch?
It's like those great base stealers that can't get on first base. It's like, well, you can't steal second if you can't get on first. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's similar to Odafe Owe running a 4.3, and then he got burnt by Josh Allen. It's like, wait a second here. Something's off.
Yeah.
Right? So, so all that being said, that's really exciting. I think Duvernay gets the ball more, and that's a lot of fun for the Ravens fans, and I think it will serve us well as a team. But I think, Andy, if he hangs around here, I think by the end of the season, if he hangs around, I know it's an if, right? Mm-hmm. I think he ends up being a better fit and a much better value for what the Ravens need instead of a guy like Marquise, right? But like we need a guy who can take the top off the defense, who can be a burner, who can stretch it, who can do some stuff in the open field. I think he will be you talked about the comp, because my thought immediately went to, man, you know what? Now Lamar doesn't have to monkey wrench 10 targets into a guy that really the scope of his work. I know he came off a good game, but the scope of his abilities is much more narrow than maybe a Rashad Bateman or maybe a Duvernay, who should be higher volume guys, where Hollywood Brown is more of a home run hitter, right? Where Andy, I think, really fits this role a little better naturally. And Lamar doesn't feel like he has to say, all right, let me get my 12 targets to Marquise or else he's going to be pouting. You know what I mean?
That could be, yeah.
I'm excited about
this. We have to understand that Andy Isabella was still just cut. So I don't want fans to think we're saying that this guy's like going to be I don't think he's going to be a difference maker. I just think he allows Duvernay to take a back seat on his special teams duties. And that maybe you talked about value. I can certainly understand that. Like they would have had to pay Marquise $30 million a year to stay.
Yeah.
Andy Isabella is going to be relatively cheap and likely on a veteran minimum once he, decides to if he decides to stick around for another year or two or three, he'll sign for the minimum. And now can he give you that take the top off, deep ball, vertical threat without the $30 million paycheck that's going to come along with it? So he's definitely, in my opinion, he's not Marquise Brown. He's definitely not Marquise Brown his talent level. But he could give you that one thing that Marquise wasn't happy about, being just that guy. He wanted to be more than that guy. Whereas Andy might say, hey, I'm here to I came out of UMass. I'll do whatever the hell you want as long as I stay in this league. I think we might just get that more of a kind of an attitude.
Yeah, and I think maybe where I'm a little more ambitious, if you will, is that I think he makes a difference in the short term offensively. I think he can do some things that I'm excited about him doing. I think, I know he got cut, but that team always runs deep at the wide receiver position.
Yeah.
And so him getting cut from that team, I don't think is a crazy indictment on him as much as it speaks to how many guys they got on that roster, right? And I know that, Hopkins is coming back and things like that, but certainly if he would have been here in training camp, there's no way he's getting cut, my opinion.
Okay.
So, I think I think right now he's better than James Prochet. You can argue with me.
I think he just brings that speed element that certainly with Bateman out, it's really Duvernay. And then who else, as far as, can be that burner. So I think Andy's going to help just by having that 4.2 high 4.2 speed. So
yeah, well, DK's telling us we got to get moving, Glenn. He's right. It's 8:58.
let's get to our because I mean, man, we haven't even really dug into. So I'm going to try and be very concise and succinct. Absolutely. Jared says quickly, will you guys be tailgating? I'm heading to the game as well. No, we're not going to be tailgating on this one just because of the timing of the game and our schedules. So we're not going to be doing a ton before or after. Maybe get there a little bit early, but not like we did last time we went, where we were there hours ahead of time and all that stuff. It's just not going to work schedule wise with our work. But yeah, we're excited nonetheless to get down there. I'll be interested. I'll be glad to see Jimmy not have to drive and do the show on the way home, because I think we're going to try and arrange some sort of transportation. But Asmodeus says last receiver we got from Arizona was Bolden. Maybe I'd have to look at it. It might be like a lower level receiver, but certainly the last big time receiver was Anquan Bolden, and no doubt the difference that guy made.
Yeah.
Even though he was only here for a very brief time, it feels like he was here for his whole career.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into it, Jimbo.
So
we talked about the injuries for the Bengals. I wanted to quickly go into some of the injuries for the Ravens, because it's been pretty good. And it's getting exciting. So, all right. So practice attendance today, did not practice. Justice Hill, no surprise. Rashad Bateman, no shock. Ben Cleveland and Justin Houston. So I don't think anybody there is a shocker. Like to see Justin Houston out there, but he's not able to make it. Limited participants, Marcus Peters with a quad. Looks like he's on track to play. And then full participants in practice. J.K. Dobbins had the chest injury. He played or participated in full. Ronnie Stanley participated in full. Patrick McCary participated in full, as well as middle linebacker Josh Bynes, who has been dealing with a hip injury. So certainly an injury report that's moving in the correct direction for a lot of guys. Jimbo, quickly, does Ronnie play this week?
Yeah, he plays, and I'm just feeling overly optimistic. He plays well. I think he's solidified.
And if he doesn't, if he's not ready, do you go for Alele or do you go Patrick McCary?
McCary. I think you have McCary. You know what Ronnie's going to be equivalent to this week? He's going to be equivalent to some icy hot. He's going to cool it down over there. Just stabilize the hurt that's going on, and then, start the healing process. I think the left tackle will be taken care of. I think Ronnie comes home, sits down on his throne there as the starting left tackle.
That's right. All
DK,
right, cool.
You want to throw that graphic up real quick? All right, see this bad. Well, yeah. So just to reiterate what Glenn said, this is the injury report. But I mean, a lot of these guys are expected to play. Going to be interesting to see, obviously, what the difference will be with Bateman out and things like that. We talked about it, but McCary officially has Wolverine blood in him. And
amazing. I don't know if I would go McCary. Yeah, that's interesting. Faalele or McCary. That's a tough call. I think mobility gives McCary, but just anchor and size.
Right.
So we'll
they
see,
literally have nothing in common. You know what I mean? Like as far as attributes, right?
Right. Let's just I think we're both hoping that Ronnie's back.
Right. For sure.
Let's get into. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Glenn, why don't you do that? Talk to me about this statistically speaking, this Bengals defense.
Yeah.
And then we'll match up against the Ravens offense, and what we'll do is we'll roll right into our keys to the game offensively and potential breakout players, and then we'll switch it up.
All right, cool. So the way this defense is laid out. All right, so let's get into it. So the defensive players that I'm going to say you have to watch out for is a few of them, and we talked about it with our guest earlier. They're two pass rushers, Trey Hendrickson and Sam Hubbard. In my opinion, are both very, very talented players. Both play with an extremely high motor, which is not always the case with highly paid pass rushers, but they certainly both play that way. They elevate the level of the play behind them because of their tenacity and how quickly they can get to the passer. So watch out for Hendrickson, watch out for Hubbard. And then on the back end, Jesse Bates and Von Bell are probably, they're definitely top 5 as far as safety tandems. And I think you could argue they're top 3. Two very, very talented players. Both can support up against the run. Both can cover. They're very good. So those are my 4 players to watch. And, of course, there's other guys. Logan Wilson's a tackling machine at middle. There's other guys, but those are my 4 I wanted to highlight. And then as far as their defense and how they kind of rank, let's see here. They give up on average, let's see here. They give up 17.5 points a game, which is phenomenal.
Yep.
Anytime you're under 20 in the NFL, that's a win. Let's see. They give up just 30% as far as third down conversions. They only allow opposing offenses to convert on 30% of their third down attempts, which is fantastic. They've only given up 1 fourth down conversion out of 5 attempts, so just 20% in that regard. They give up
John's ready to
240.
test that.
No doubt. Absolutely. Too soon. They give up 242 passing yards per game and 85.8 rushing yards per game. So again, 2 pretty impressive numbers. They're a team. They're a good offense. There's no doubt about it. They're a good defense. Their biggest weaknesses, I guess you'd call them, is the inconsistency of Eli Apple, but that could also be a strength if he's on a heater. And then I question the athleticism of those linebackers. Logan Wilson has instincts for days and is a tackling machine, but not the most athletic or fleet of foot. I think Jermaine Pratt is he's an okay guy. So they got a pretty good defense is kind of the moral of the story here, Jimbo.
Yeah, and with that being said, from an offensive perspective, I think the Ravens will, with that in mind, I think we'll still have plenty of chances to take advantage of things that they might not be the best at, right? And so Matt kind of talked about this, but running the football is something that the Ravens are every game seem to be getting a little bit better and a little bit better at right now. If I'm not mistaken, we're at 5.4 a game, and that's not that's gone up in comparison to the week prior. And so I think the Ravens are trending in the right direction, hopefully getting healthier on the offensive line. So our offense right now is down a little bit as far as average points per game. We're down to 23 or 29 from 33, but we still know what this offense's potential has the potential of doing. We're not going to be facing the same weather. We're going to be at home. I'm expecting the Ravens offense to play really well. My offensive breakout player of the game, Glenn, going up against this defense, is Isaiah Likely. I think that now with Bateman out, everyone that's in line from pass catching moves up a rung. And I think that this directly impacts Isaiah Likely the most. He hasn't been targeted in an incredible amount thus far. But I think with Duve being the number one, well, really, Mark being the number one guy, but then Duve being the number one wide receiver, I think this gives an opportunity for an Isaiah Likely to step in as like a number 3 type guy. Mm-hmm. And I think he can take advantage of it, and I think he will. So he's my offensive breakout player of the game. I'm just going to give you my key as well real quick. It really comes down to finishing the way that you start. The Ravens have played really well in spots, but things like the beginning of the second half, we come out slow, or as soon as we get a little bit of a lead, we seem to take our foot off the gas a little bit. Whether that's throwing, passing, you can have your preference. The Ravens have gotten up on a number of teams, but they don't seem to keep their foot on the gas. So finish the way you start. Any team can get a lead in the NFL. Great teams finish games, and I think offensively is we've got to rely on the offense to do that. So they've got to keep their foot on the gas.
Okay. All right. I mean, it's hard to disagree with the finishing of games when you blow 2 17-plus point leads. And while the defense gets most of the blame, I agree with you. The offense certainly has to do their part in the second half of the ball game. So to me, I want to slow down. My key to the game is just slow down their pass rushers. I don't think they're the greatest at defending the run. They're not horrible, but I think they can be had. Certainly, it looks like the Ravens' run game's moving in the right direction, and I hope that they take an additional step. And if Ronnie's back, then they'll certainly be benefited by that. The more options in the playbook will then open up for Greg Roman because of his athleticism as well as size. He has that combination. It's like McCary and Fa'alele were put together, and then some, and then you get Ronnie Stanley because he's just that much of a difference maker. So slow down their pass rushers to me is the key. Again, that secondary is good, but I think they're benefited and they're made to look a lot better because of those pass rushers. So let's hope that that Greg Roman has a plan to help these tackles, because I do think even if Ronnie's back, if you leave Moses and Ronnie on islands, I got a bad feeling that Hubbard and Hendrickson are going to make one or two of those guys pay. So let's see if we have a creative plan to occasionally help both of those guys, not just help one, not just help the other, but on occasion bounce back and forth and give each of these guys help to slow down that pass rush. I think if Lamar has time, I think they're going to be fine. I think he's going to dice up the middle of the field like we saw with the Dolphins. And so, yeah, I'm excited about that matchup. As far as my breakout player, Yeah, I mean, we talked about how Duvernay's role is going to expand. I think a guy whose role could certainly expand is going to be Demarcus Robinson. We saw
Mhm.
the flashes that he showed when he first arrived here, and we haven't seen a ton of him since, other than a couple catches here and there. This could be his time to kind of break out and show that him and Lamar have that connection, and not just what we saw in the preseason between him and Huntley. So yeah, I think Demarcus Robinson has his first score as a Baltimore Raven. So he's my breakout player
Wait,
of all.
he scored. He scored already.
Did he? Oh shit. Okay. I mean,
Yeah,
crap.
second score.
Second score. There we go.
Yeah, nice. But I like it. I mean, I think
Yeah.
following a little bit of the same logic there, we just took a different guy as far as breakout
Yep.
player. But let's move on to the other side of the equation. Let's talk a little bit about this dangerous Bengals offense. Obviously, that all starts with Joey B, and we'll talk about a little bit about what he's done this year. Let me pull this up here and make sure I got this correctly. All right. So Joe Burrow this year has 8 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. He's already thrown for a little over 1,000 yards. Leading receiver right now, Mike kind of talked about this, T. Higgins, his progression this year. He's done really well. But Jamar Chase is another headliner there who is somebody that you can't forget. And then Joe Mixon has been struggling, but certainly a lot of that just seems to be falling on the offensive line, and they're hoping that as they continue to get healthy, those things can improve upon. Some players, just like I mentioned, to look out for: Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. I would throw Hayden Hurst in there for this game. Going to be very emotional. Tyler Boyd, right? He's broken our back a couple times in the past, and so certainly a lot of weapons to look out for. But statistically, Glenn, why don't you talk a little bit about our defense? Are we looking better after this Bills game? Or are we looking worse?
Well, there's the pass defense is still dead last, 32nd in the league. No surprise there. It's a tough defense to watch try and close games out, and it seems like no matter where they try and fit a young guy, the offensive coordinator can immediately find him, and then the quarterback immediately targets him. So we're giving up currently 25 points per game, which is just it's not good. We're giving up, let's see, not too bad in the third down conversions, giving up 33.3% of conversion rate. So not bad, but fourth down, Jimbo, they've given up 7 of 9 fourth down attempts, almost 78% efficiency for opposing offenses on fourth down. That is absolutely unacceptable. They're giving up 315 net passing yards per game, also horrendous and unacceptable. They're giving up 110 yards rushing per game, which anything over 100 in Baltimore is disappointing. Giving up 5 yards per carry to opposing offenses. That's not where the Ravens wanted to be. Defensively, it's just unacceptable. But I will say they've gotten a ton of interceptions. They, I think, have, 7 interceptions already this season, which is incredible. This is already, I think, surpassed last year's total as far as interceptions.
I think it did last game even. Something crazy like that.
That's how they've been getting by. They've been giving up a ton of yards, but then having some key turnovers in the games that they did win that have kind of helped that defense. But they've got to get better as far as giving up all these yardage totals and giving up those fourth down conversions, because typically those fourth down conversions are happening at the end of games, and you can't close a game if you're giving up a bunch of fourth down attempts.
Yep, absolutely. So, Glenn, give me your defensive key to the game and your breakout player.
Yeah, so my defensive key to the game is going to be pressure Joe Burrow. We heard our guest early talking about how last couple games he's been a lot better, because the first couple games, I think he got sacked 13 times in 2 games, and then he's been better. Well, he hasn't. He's been better, but the offensive line hasn't been better. It's just that they've been getting the ball out so damn quickly. He talked about how Tom Brady got the ball out in under 2.5 seconds in virtually every snap. Well, at these last 2 games, Burrow's been doing a lot of that. He's been dropping back, which is why we haven't seen Jamar Chase with these huge averages. He's only averaging 11 yards per catch, but that's because he's not getting enough time to get down the field before the ball's out, and he's got to make a play on it. And so I think we have to find a way to disrupt those early attempts. Throw the guy off, jam the guy at the line of scrimmage. Don't let Joe Burrow just take 3 steps and fire the ball. Disrupt that timing. Force him to hold the ball for a couple seconds, because I think if you do, you can get at this offensive line and get Joe Burrow on the ground. So that's my key, is to pressure Joe Burrow. We cannot let him sit back and be comfortable, or that is, I mean, those talents on the outside are just going to destroy us if we let him sit back and feel comfortable. So got to pressure Burrow. And then my breakout player is going to be Pepe. It's going to be Pepe. I know I said it last week, but this is the week because he's going to get a heck of a challenge with Tyler Boyd. And I think that Joe Burrow is going to look at Humphrey on one side. He's going to look at he's going to look at Peters on the other side and go, I don't know if I want to throw at those guys. Why don't I throw at this young guy? Because everyone else has been doing it with success. And I think that's when Pepe makes a play, whether it's him securing an interception or getting a hand on the ball, causing another, like Marcus Williams, to come in and catch a tipped interception. Either way, he makes a big time play, and he's my breakout player.
Nice. Will we correct all these offensive defensive penalties? I felt like we had been doing well before this last game. I think the refs didn't do us any favors. So I'm going to say yes, Raven Ron. And I'm going to blame that one on the Ravens. Mine is simple. Tackle. Keep everything in front of you and make these playmakers work for every yard. That's really what it's going to come down to. Limit the yak and really make them work. And my defensive player of the game, you talked about pressure and Joe. I'm going to go to Odafe Owe. I think he has a breakout game. The Ravens are putting out funny stats now to help Adafe's case and him leading the league in pressures. Get it done, Odafe. Get to the quarterback. And I think this week he does. I think he gets 2 sacks.
My man.
Odafe Owe. And has a little bit of a rebound game. But all right, let's keep this thing rolling. We're a little short on time. So guys, our sponsor of the show is Prize Picks. Go check it out if you want to win some money. They got great over-unders. It's really that simple. Promo code is 410. They match your deposit up to $100. I so far this year have almost tripled my entire allotted money to Prize Picks. And if I can do it, you can do it because I'm a Joe Blow. Okay. So you got this. Go check out Prize Picks, check out their over-unders, and let us know what your successes are on social media. Hit us up. But we got to get to our coveted contest in which all you guys can participate. We have our weekly over-under contest. And the winner, of course, gets a shirt. If you win twice, you get a hoodie. So we'll get right to it here. All right. So we have 2 offensive and 2 defensive. And I forgot to mention the way you can participate is by DMing us in any social media platform that you see above Glenn's head. And then, or in the comments of this video after it goes live, not in the chat, in an actual comment. So DK, what do we got first? Adam78 says, get to your contest. All right. J.K. Dobbins yards per rush attempt over under 3.5 on the or over under 3.5. He's 3.2 on the season. Wow, I'm surprised. I just took a double look or a double take. I'm saying over. Glenn, what are you saying?
Yeah, it looks like everyone's in agreement here.
Everyone swept the board, saying over.
Well, I mean, look, JK last year led the league with 6 a carry, so we expect him to get better and better each week, and let's hope we're right until Gus comes back to help be, that thunder to his lightning. So yeah, we all go over there, and so I think either we're going to be all right
or all wrong. I think that's the only way it could turn out.
I guess so. What if he averages exactly 3.5?
Then we're all wrong.
All right, so next one we have Ravens passing first downs. Do they pass for 9.5 first downs? More or less, currently averaging 9.75 passing first down. Man, you got to give credit to DK. He's not taking no little simple.
Yeah, no breaks. No breaks for DK.
My man's deep diving for these over-unders. I'm going to say under in this one because I think the running game is going to be a huge part of our offense, and I'm hopeful that we'll see a lot more 3rd and shorts rather than 3rd and long and allow them to run for some of these first downs. That's my prediction. So I say under. What do you say?
I'm saying over. I'm saying over because I'm just feeling overly positive about this game in general. So I think the passing game is our offense at this point until Gus comes back. I don't know how much faith I have in the rushing attack, but also JK gets the ball in space in passing situations. And if he's there on 3rd down, that could also increase the likelihood of that number going up because, it might not be a run. We're in 3rd and short, but we get it to JK and he gets the yards we need.
Yep. Cool. All right. Let's move on to the first defensive over under. Opponent 3rd down efficiency, 30% over under. Currently on the season, the Ravens holding opponents to 33.3%. I'm going to say over only because 30% is pretty low for a team that's as talented offensively as the Bengals. But man, am I hoping I get this one wrong?
Yeah, you're going to get it wrong. This has got get back game written all over it for the Baltimore Ravens. And really, it all comes down to the defense. Look, I'm not holding back anymore. I loved our guest. Appreciate him coming on. But Joe is all Macaulay Culkin all off season, just chirp, 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 knowing good and dang well the guys that he rung up points against are bagging groceries right now. So now you play against the boys, Joe. Let's see how you do. I'm not saying you're going to have a terrible game, but I don't think you ring up 1,000 in 2 games. So I think the Ravens get a little get back, a little comeuppance to Joe Burrow in this game. And I think that shows itself in this statistic going under. All right, DK, what do we got next? All right, so let's see. Over-under, this is our second defensive one. And final over-under, Marcus Williams plus Marcus Peters. Interceptions at 0.05. I'm going to be honest, I only read Marcus Peters, but I'm going to stick with my answer. I'm going under here. I think we'll just have some surprise guys to get it done. So that's my only logic to this. While it would make sense to pick Marcus Peters and Marcus Williams, I'm just going with other people and going under. I got a hunch.
I love these over-unders by DK. Certainly outdone himself once again. Last week he had the fun 1.5 sacks over-under between Owe. I think it was Owe and Pat Queen. And boy, was that exciting because Owe got one early and Queen kept getting so close. Owe came so close. So I think this is the one where we're going to see another one. It's going to be one of those. There's going to be a lot of opportunities where they're going to have to get their hands on the ball, and they will. So I say over. Marcus Williams gets a tipped interception from Pepe, and that's why they go over, but also wouldn't be surprised if Peters gets his hand on the ball. All right, so next one. The first tiebreaker is going to be our total score over-under. So not quite the end of our over-unders here, Jimbo.
Oh, yeah,
that's
true. My bad.
Way of doing things. So DK sets it at 48 points over-under. Jimmy, what say you?
Yeah, I'm saying over 54 total points, and I'll give you my score as well. The Baltimore Ravens win this game 31-23. The Baltimore Ravens get it done at home. Was my math right there? 54.
Yep.
Looks like we're in good shape. Looking forward to it. So Baltimore Ravens victory, decisive one at that. 54 total points, over 48.
All right, I'm going to say over as well. I think it ends up 27-24. It's a heck of a game, but I think Justin Tucker breaks the tie in the waning seconds and gives the Ravens a 3-point win. So we both agree that it is over, as well as DK and Brad agreeing it's over. So let's get into our tiebreakers. So total yards for the Ravens is the final tiebreaker. In case there's no decided winner after
and Glenn
those
has
over-unders,
nothing in there.
I'm going to add, I had to wait for you guys to add some stuff, so maybe I could add.
So I'll start off. I'm going to go with 382, and I might be the highest of the group. Glenn's officially the highest of the group. Yeah, 382 is what I'm taking. Glenn, what are you taking?
I'm going to say 390. I don't really have a good reason why. I waited for you to put yours in there just to. I $1'd you. I price is righted you right here, Jimbo. Is what I did. I could have been really nasty with it and put 383, but I didn't because I'm a gentleman. Okay.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. No
Appreciate it. I mean, it's not even going to come down to this. I'm already going to win it anyway. So I'm not super concerned about it. I am the only one besides a guy named Brad that has a W this season thus far. So
a controversial one at that.
Hey, W is a W, bro. Inch a mile. Come on now. So anyway, make sure you guys participate. We had a blast tonight.
Yeah.
Go enjoy the Thursday night game on Amazon Prime. No sponsor there. Just go check it out. But
let us know also. Hey, if you didn't see it, if you jumped in late,
yeah,
go back, restart it, and check out our guest Mike Petralia, I should say, because he was fantastic and super insightful.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you messed that one up too.
It's Mike Petralia.
There you go. All right. I don't remember how it was, but either way, Trags is what it is on Twitter. And he's awesome. Really nice guy and really great for him coming on. So shout out to all you guys tonight. We will see you after the game in the back of the Uber. We'll talk to you guys soon.
See you.